Welcome to the Forum for Candidates for State House of Representatives District 35A, which represents the cities of Anoka and Ramsey. This is an open seat because Representative Abigail Whalen is not running. Both candidates have accepted the League of Women Voters, Anoka, Blaine, and Coon Rapids area invitation to this forum and have agreed to our ground rules. I am Bruce Pomerantz, a member of the League of Women Voters. I live in Fridley. I cannot vote for these candidates, nor do I know them personally. The League of Women Voters works to promote the active and informed participation of citizens in the voting process by conducting candidate forums such as this, and by promoting voter registration drives for all eligible voters. The League does not endorse, support, or oppose any political party or candidate, but we do study issues of local, state, and national importance. The League is open to membership for men and women of all ages 16 years and over, and we invite you to join us. You can visit our website, lwvabcmn, that's all one sequence, .org for more information. The candidates will start by answering 3 introductory questions which were supplied to them in advance. Candidate responses will be timed by a League of Women Voters member who will give candidates a 15-second notice before time is up because their answers can only be up to 1 minute in length. We will then take audience questions, and again, they will all have 1 minute. They will each have 1 minute to answer the question. At the end, the candidates will make a 1-minute closing statement. The candidates in House District 35A are John Heinrich, would you please raise your hand in case they can't read and Bill Vikander. Okay, and now we'll just start in good old alphabetical order with our questions first. And the question first for Mr. Heinrich, which you received in advance, is describe your background and community involvement.
Well, first I want to thank everybody for being here this evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. It's going to be a great time chatting with all of you about issues that you care about and that I care about as well. My background starts in Coon Rapids. Grew up in Coon Rapids, graduated from Meadow Creek in Andover, which is now Legacy Academy, and I joined the Marine Corps. Was a military police officer in the Marines from 2000 through 2008, and served in Iraq, 2 tours in Iraq in 2003 and 4. Very proud of my military service. Since then, in the civilian world, I've been in the asphalt and concrete industry. I started out wire brooming and shoveling asphalt on driveways and parking lots, and now I'm the vice president at a local asphalt and concrete company. My background is blue collar. I'm not a politician or a lawyer. This is new to me, but I hope to serve my community well. Thank you.
And now, Mr. Vikander, would you please respond to the same question?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us this evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having this forum, and thank you to all of you in the audience for being here to have this important discussion. My background, I grew up in Alexandria, Minnesota. I moved down to Minneapolis to attend the University of Minnesota, where I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in Psychology in 2010. I live in Ramsey with my wife, Jessica, and my 3 young children. I have 2 beautiful daughters, Eleanor, who's 4, and Evie, who is 3. We actually have a 4.5-week-old at home, baby Leopold, we just had a few weeks ago. So if I look a little sleep deprived right now, it might be because of that. We have a baby at home that's keeping us busy. So I look forward to the conversation tonight, the great questions that you guys all have. And yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Vikander, then will you please answer the next question that you received in advance? What are your qualifications and why are you seeking this office?
Thank you for the question. my background is in higher education. So after I graduated from the University of Minnesota, the student loan bills started coming right away, and I thought, what better way to give back to the community that gave to me and start working in higher education. So my background is in financial aid and admissions. I currently work at Capella University, where I lead a team of admissions and records operations of individuals that come in to apply to our university and attend our school. So working in financial aid, working in higher education, I think gives me an important perspective on some of the issues that we face in our community today, especially around student loan debt in our communities, in our states, in our country, and the high cost of education. So that is an issue that's very important to me. Over the last handful of years, I've worked in leadership opportunities where I've led teams. And I think that has given me important lessons on how to listen and how to gain agreement with people. So,
Thank you. Bill Vikander, will you please answer the question?
John Heinrich, thank you.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. Honor, courage, and commitment. These were core values that were instilled in me when I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I hold to those values today. I learned about managing people, leadership, and vision, and working together as a team. I feel like I'm positioned well to serve our community also because of my background in the asphalt and concrete industry. Highway 10 and Highway 47 are some major roads that come through our community, and I feel like I can be a great advocate at the state capitol for our community and those needs to get rid of the stoplights on Highway 10 and to make sure that businesses and families have efficient access to their homes and businesses. If I could continue, I got a couple more seconds. The reason I'm running is because of the sense of duty that I've always had to my community and country. And I feel like I can serve my community well, and I want to. Thank you.
Now, John Heinrich.
Yes.
I apologize for that. What are your short and long-term goals as a state House district representative?
Sure. So short-term goals, I'd like to make sure that we focus on our schools and our school system to make sure that our children are learning the skills that they need to be successful in their dreams. I want to make sure we take care of our vets ASAP, and so that's something that I am passionate about, that I'd like to work on to continue to take care of our vets. We already have a great, Eagles Healing Nest here in Anoka. Our State Senator Jim Abler has done a great job working on that, as well as many others, probably a lot of you here in this room as well. So I just want to continue working on that. And then be a great advocate for our community's roads and bridges. Long-term, is this part of it also, short-term and long-term right now, or just, okay.
No.
So envision with me a Highway 10 with 3 lanes going both directions and no stoplights. Envision a business climate here in Minnesota that makes businesses want to come here and do business here and stay and provide jobs here. Those are some of my long-term goals. Thank you.
Going to make sure I get it right this time. Bill Vikander, what are your short and long-term goals as a House state representative?
great question. So short term, I think we're all well aware of the tax bill that was passed last year. And there's a huge need to pass the federal tax conformity bill. So that's something that we definitely need to work on. We need to pass right away so that families, a lot of you families that are in here, are not impacted in any harmful way. So that's certainly a short-term goal of mine. But education is, as John mentioned, super important to me because I have 3 children. I think there are funding emergencies that we are having in this state when it comes to our public schools, and we definitely need to work on funding our schools. Long term, what I would like to do is implement more transparency and accountability in our government. I think over the past handful of years, you've seen that there's a lot of divisiveness, a lot of bickering back and forth that's happening, and we're not getting a lot done for the citizens of the state. So that's certainly a long-term goal of mine, and I hope if I'm elected to be your legislator that I would bring to the office.
Okay, now we'll go to the questions from the audience and some that we received in advance through our website. And this is first for Bill Vikander. And you both mentioned education. I have 2 questions on education. If you could change one thing about our educational system, what would that be?
That's a very easy question for me because the reality of the matter is that our public schools are underfunded. In addition to that, we have a very wide gap in the resources that are available in different communities throughout our state. So we need to level that playing field so that our children that are going to our schools have all the opportunities to be successful that we all had growing up. So we need to work on ensuring that our children have all the resources available to them and that we're not looking at teacher layoffs and things like that. We need to make sure that our schools are properly funded. So I think that is there a second part to that question as well?
No, this is what we do. What one thing? If you want to do more than one thing, that's fine. Okay. Then for Mr. John Heinrich, same question. What do you, if you could change one thing about our education system, what would that be?
Well, I'd like to frame it more as the one thing I would like to change is the level of parental involvement in their children's lives, in their education. I think that's probably about the hugest thing, because when you have parents that are involved and encouraged and empowered to be involved in their children's education, I feel like we have the best chance for their success. Secondary to that would just be to make sure that our schools are teaching critical thinking skills, and so that our kids actually hit the real world with a sense of reality, and that you actually do have to work to succeed in the real world, and so you can be self-sustaining and a great member of society. Thank you.
Okay. And now, for, John Heinrich, the next question is, how do you feel about vouchers for education and why?
That's a great question. Personally, I think that a voucher program is something that we need to seriously look at. We do see that the public school system has been not doing as well of a job in a lot of cases as some of the charter schools or private schools. And I think that right now the cost per pupil in public education is around $18,000 to $20,000 per pupil at the high school level. And I know there's some schools that do that a lot better at a lower cost, and so we need to work on that.
Okay. And now, Bill Vikander, how do you feel about vouchers for education and why?
That's a great question, and that's the debate that's happening right now at the state legislature. Do we move to a more school voucher system? And I couldn't be more opposed to a voucher system. Quite frankly, I think that moving to a school voucher system is going to drain money away from the public schools that we expect our children to level the playing field. To have all an equal opportunity at being successful in life. So I oppose school vouchers. I think. If someone wants to send their child to a private school or different institution, that they have the choice to do that. They have the involvement to make that decision. But that would set our children that are that can't afford that type of education back if we took money away from that school. So that's my position.
Okay, now Bill Vikander, I hope if this is incorrect, please correct the issue here. But school districts are the only local elected body that needs to go to the public to get approval for tax levies. Do you think this should be changed?
That's a great question, and one that I haven't had the experience of speaking with voters at the doors much on. One thing that I would say that I was very proud to see in our community in Anoka and Ramsey is that we in 2017, as most of you know, had a levy passed. Which created 2 new elementary schools in our community, and that addresses a serious issue that we have in crowded classrooms, very large teacher-student ratios, and so that's what I would say to that is we need to continue to ensure that our teachers have all the tools that they need, and that our schools are funded to the point where our students can be successful.
And John Heinrich, same question: should school districts be able to levy taxes without public approval?
I think that, I guess in short, no. I think that they should have to have public approval to increase taxes on the people. I don't think that there's as much of a correlation between the dollars going into the school system and actually having the kids succeeding. And so if the goal here is to have children actually succeed and graduate high school with high literacy and be able to succeed in life, unfortunately, what we've seen is extra money thrown at that, and it just does not correlate. There's zero correlation between the success of the child and more money in education.
Thank you. Now this question for John Heinrich. In fact, I have several questions concerning health care, and I'm going to try to put them in order of, but it makes sense, hopefully. First, the generic one is, what is the state's role in providing health care? John Heinrich.
Well, the state is I think one of the largest budget items is healthcare in the state of Minnesota, and so it plays a very big role. I think that's a huge role as far as budget goes. If we're talking about specifically moving the state more into a single-payer system, I would disagree with that. I think when it comes to healthcare, and I can tell you that when I've been door knocking, a lot of the residents of Ramsey and Anoka are concerned about the rising costs of healthcare. The way to go on healthcare is going to be a free market-based solution, which is going to increase quality and have lower prices. And so, unfortunately, we heard some things that weren't true in the single-payer debate back during the Obama presidency years. He said two things: you can keep your doctor, and prices will go down. Neither one of those were true.
And now, Bill Vikander, what is the state's role in providing health care?
Similarly to what John had said, healthcare is one of the greatest concerns that I hear about at the doors. I hear way too many individuals that can't afford to visit their doctor, or a simple health ailment will put them under, they'll have to sell their house, and that I'm not okay with that, and we shouldn't be okay with that as Minnesotans, as Americans. I think there needs to be a transformation in the way that we look at healthcare, and that everyone's going to need healthcare at some point in their lives, and that healthcare is a right for everyone. I think the idea that a free market health system where corporations, pharmaceutical companies that are making record profits right now, that's not going to help us get costs lower. That's not going to help people get the health services that they need. So we definitely need to have a change in conversation, and that healthcare is a right for everyone involved. And I do think single payer is the best solution available to us right now. So we need to make that change.
Okay, because I got two questions on identical question. Even though you've already stated your position on single-payer health care, I'm going to give you another minute each to emphasize your point, I guess. All right, and this time it's Bill Vikander who speaks first. Single-payer.
I think there's a lot of support behind a single-payer system, and there's a lot of issues in our current healthcare system with costs rising. You recently saw in the last handful of years that something as simple as an EpiPen went from $100 to $600 almost overnight, and that's a health that people can die by not having access to that. And that's an important concept to look at, that folks need to be able to afford these things. They need to be able to see their doctor, have their health concerns addressed without having to worry about putting food on the table and affording to live. And I think that's so important.
And John Heinrich, single
you.
payer. Again, gives you one more minute.
So this is something that my opponent and I, there's a sharp contrast there, and there probably is on multiple issues. And so that's a good thing, because it should make it clear to everybody where we stand on the issue. I just want to remind everybody that just by declaring something a right does not make that product or service more readily available. And so we can say we can declare it a right that people should have food, for example. That does not mean that food will actually be available. There are countries that have made healthcare a right. They can't get healthcare. There's countries that made it a right to even be fed, and they're starving. And so we need to be careful about what we declare as rights. I think both of us agree we both want people to be healthy. We both want them to have access to great world-class health care. We just have a disagreement on the way to get there. Thank you.
And continuing on that topic, John Heinrich. Should Minnesota Care continue to fund MNsure?
Should Minnesota Care continue to fund MNsure?
That's the way the question is phrased.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes sense or not, so you'll have to help me if there's a...
You know, that is one that I don't know a lot about, specifically how that system is put together for the funding. But again, I guess I'll just take my time to address the idea that I feel like the best way to produce, if we want to have the best healthcare product for people and we want to have lower prices, trust me, the way to do that is not more government control over it. Thank you.
And Bill Vikander, again, I'm just repeating it as it's written, so should MnCare continue to fund MNsure?
I'll use this opportunity once again to state that I think healthcare is a right, that we all deserve access to healthcare, and we shouldn't have to worry about the costs involved there. One of the things that we noticed in this year's legislature is that the Republican-controlled House failed to make Minnesota Care an option for those that are in the marketplace seeking health insurance. And I think the Minnesota Care system works. It works well, and we need to make that more readily available to others throughout the state. So that's my position. I don't know if that answers the question exactly how it's stated, but I'd be happy to elaborate more with others in the room.
And this will be the last question on healthcare unless we have some time afterwards. The state funds HMOs to manage the health care of patients receiving medical assistance and Minnesota Care. How will you make sure that the HMOs are doing an effective and efficient job with the best results for their patients?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
That's a great question, and again, I can't overstate that how important healthcare is to individuals at the doors right now. That's the number one topic, and we have to hold these big corporations that are providing this care accountable. We need to make sure that these costs are lowered, that individuals in our community have access to these products. I understand that is important to have that right to choose, but there is a need. Everyone's going to need health care at some point in their lives, so we need to make sure that we make that available.
Okay. And John Heinrich, how would you make sure that HMOs such as Blue Cross Blue Shield and provide the best care with the money provided by the state legislature for the patients?
Well, we definitely need any money provided that's taxpayer money to HMOs. This is a health maintenance organization. Needs to be transparent, and there needs to be great oversight to make sure that money is getting dispersed the way that it was allotted to.
Okay. All right, switching topics now. And this one is for John Heinrich. How would you pay for infrastructure that is needed so badly?
Well, one way would be, so infrastructure, for example, here in our community, we're talking about like roads and bridges, things like that. And so we do have a tax base of businesses, and so it's really important that we keep good businesses here in Minnesota because good businesses create jobs, which create paychecks, and that's how taxes are paid. That's how government is funded. And so we need to make sure that we have a lucrative environment here in Minnesota for our businesses. I know our seniors, Social Security Social Security is taxed for our seniors. I think that's wrong. We're seeing them leave our state. And so all of those things kind of combine into a vibrant economy, a robust community, and we're going to be able to fund the infrastructure needs that we have.
And Bill Vikander, how would you pay for infrastructure that is needed so badly?
That's a great question. And, and especially in Anoka Ramsey with Highway 10 and Highway 47 running through here, it's dire need of repairs and maintenance. John and I agree on one thing there, that Social Security being taxed for seniors, that's not okay. Now, the one way that we can get to improved infrastructure, roads, bridges, everyone needs to be able to commute to school, to work, to be able to be active participants in our communities. The way that we get there is by our corporations paying their fair share. For too long, they are getting away with not paying their fair share. They are taking up homes in our state. They need to be active participants in our state. And I think that's the way that we get there, is by having corporations pay their fair share.
And John Heinrich. Oh no, did I already? I asked you the question. I'm sorry. Here's the second one then. And this one was Vikander. Oops. Just a minute. Oh, here it is. In our community, transportation is always an important issue. What would be your transportation priorities? Roads such as Highway 10 or trains?
That's a great question. I do have a passion for the train, as I take, as well as many other families in our community, take the North Star train to and from Minneapolis to get to work every day. And it's a great benefit, and we need to expand that and have that go up to St. Cloud. I think there's great opportunities for our businesses and our community to thrive if we can expand transportation in our community. So that would be a priority of mine. We know whether or not that would happen before we, get to some of these major repairs that are sorely needed on Highway 10. We have some of the unsafest intersections, railroad crossings, things like that in our community. We need to work on improving that as well. But I will share that I do have a passion for rail and other modes of transportation that's not getting in vehicles and driving down the road.
And John Heinrich, again, what would be your transportation priorities? Roads such as Highway 10 or trains?
My priorities would certainly be roads and bridges over trains or any mass transit. That's where my priority would lie.
That's it. Okay. I've been to numerous forums concerning state house representatives, and the question of omnibus bills has always come up. And to paraphrase Mark Twain, everybody talks about the omnibus bill, but no one does anything about it. So, first for Mr. John Heinrich, unless you do like omnibus bills, then take opposition. But what would you do to stop omnibus bills?
Boy, that's a great question. It just seems like being new to politics, it just seems like that's kind of business as usual down at the Capitol. And so I don't know the ins and outs of exactly why that needs to take place, but I know that there's a lot of things to cover, and sometimes they apparently need to put multiple line items or different subject matter into one bill. Now, I do want to remind everybody, I believe in our state constitution, we do have a single subject law or a provision in our state constitution that does state that it's supposed to be a single subject, so you can't have something funding healthcare and a bridge and something else over there. And so I don't know how exactly the existing legislatures that go back have dealt with that, but that is something in our Constitution. And so that's something that a lot of people are frustrated about. I've been hearing that when I knock doors as well. They ask about the omnibus bill. People don't have time to read all the information a lot of the time in those bills as well, and before they're supposed to vote on it. So it's a frustration. I look forward to learning more about that.
Okay, and Bill Vikander, what would you do about omnibus bills and stop that custom?
I do think that the omnibus bill is what's leading to a lot of this divisiveness, a lot of this not being able to get things done down at the state legislature. I think when you tuck in multiple subjects, multiple needs for our state and our community in one bill, it doesn't really give, and then you also don't have a lot of time to read it and think on it. That doesn't give the voter an opportunity to hold their politicians accountable. We saw this year a 990-page omnibus bill come forward that legislators they had less than 4 hours to even read through that bill. And that does a severe disservice to our constituents, the voters throughout Minnesota, and we need to move away from that. There's a lot of bipartisan support for a lot of issues out there. Common sense gun legislation, for example. That's something that, and school safety legislation. If we put that up for a vote, single topic budget, I think there'd be a lot of support behind it, and we can actually start to get things done for our community.
Thank you. Now this is for Bill Vikander, and there are national issues that are affecting or could affect Minnesota, and you might have to vote on issues as a result of different congressional or Supreme Court decisions. So these are all related to that possibility. Tell us your stance on the abortion issue and why.
That's a great question. I try to stay away from the national politics at the doors because it is so, it's at the forefront of everyone's mind, and we're here to serve the people of the state of Minnesota. When it comes to the abortion issue, I stand for the woman's right to choose. I think that's so important that we continue to support a woman's right to decide what they do with their body. We've seen in our legislature at the state an attempt to legislate conversations between women and their doctors. And me as a male, I don't feel like I have the authority, the right to be able to do that. I think, we hear, smaller government, less intrusive in our lives. That is one of those components that we need to make sure that we aren't intruding in the lives of women. So I do support the woman's right to choose, absolutely.
John Heinrich, please tell us your stance on the abortion issue and why.
Well, first of all, I think that it is a local issue. It was kind of framed that this is only a national issue. I'd like to say that, Abigail Whalen, the current representative, who's not seeking re-election, has done a lot of tremendous work on the pro-life issue there at the state capitol. I do believe that life does begin at conception and it ends at natural death. And so my position is to protect all vulnerable and innocent human life. If it's a part of your body, I would consider that more like a lung or a kidney. If it's a human being, it's something separate, and we have to be very careful about just doing away with if that's a human being there, and I believe it is.
And now to John Heinrich. How would you approach redistricting?
I would approach it we need to have a Republican governor so that the Democrat governor does not gerrymander the lines. And so I would ask everybody to vote for Jeff Johnson in November.
Okay. Bill Vikander, what would your approach be to redistricting?
Well, the redistricting issue, Minnesota's lucky in the sense that we haven't had to deal with gerrymandering a whole lot because it's always gone to the court to decide, how the district should be drawn. Now, the downside of that is that it costs the taxpayers a lot of money to make that decision. There, on both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican, each side wants to draw the lines in the ways that favor their party. That there's no doubt about that. My approach, parties aside, I think we need to have independent drawing of these districts so that we have accurate representation in our government, and that the folks that are at the legislature that are representing our values and our needs and our desires, that they're accurately reflecting of that. So that would be my approach, more of an independent drawing of our districts.
Okay, and Bill Vikander, where do you stand on gun safety issues?
That's a phenomenal question, especially now that we just started a whole new school year. What's unfortunate is that we've had the 2018 legislative session kicked off with this tragedy in Parkland, Florida, and there's a lot of common sense, bipartisan support for various things to help us with this gun issue that we have in the state and this country. For example, universal background checks. All responsible gun owners, John included, I'm sure has gone through background checks, has gone through the steps to be a responsible gun owner. 90% of Minnesotans want to see universal background checks. 85% of gun owners. So that's something that we can get done right away if we put together, not within an omnibus bill, not tucking in, not using it as a bargaining chip, but there is common sense, bipartisan support. We can get that through. We'll get that through in 2019.
And Jen Heinrich, what are your positions on gun safety issues?
Well, I think a lot of the time we see Democrats have a knee-jerk reaction to blame the gun instead of the individual. I think that's the wrong place to place the blame. It is a tool, just like a vehicle or a knife or a hammer. A gun is a tool as well. Unfortunately for the Democrats, we do have a Second Amendment right. The people do have a right in the Constitution to keep and bear arms. I would say that we need to make sure we work hard on the hardening schools. We need to make sure that our schools are safer for our children. We need to work on mental health issues. Again, what's the root issue here? Somebody, if they decide to kill somebody, they can use any number of tools. And so I think the wrong reaction would be to ban guns, which is what the left would like to do.
Okay. And this will be the last question, then we'll go into your closing statements. For those of you who didn't have your questions answered here or out there and you didn't hear the question that you wanted asked, I assume both candidates either have Facebook or websites where you could enter questions and they would respond. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely.
Yes. Feel free to message or, yeah.
Okay, so again, if this has not been sufficient for you, please contact them directly and they'll answer you.
Yes, please.
Okay. Last question. Where do you stand on copper mining and distribution of natural resources? And this question goes to John Heinrich.
I think the people of that district there deserve to have those good jobs brought back to their district. There is a lot of advancement in technology over the years. There's still some, I would say, fear-mongering going on that the environment's going to be completely destroyed. But our ability nowadays to utilize the precious resources that we do have in our state and help our economy be robust and help those people up there have their jobs, I think that we can do that, and we can still do a great job of taking care of the environment as well.
And Bill Vikander, where do you stand on copper mining and distribution of natural resources?
That's a phenomenal question, and one that I talk a lot about when I'm talking with voters. The environment, especially up here in Minnesota, it's so important to us, and it's so important that our children have access to the lakes and the woods and all these places that we grew up loving when we were children. I do not support opening up more mines. I think the benefits that you see financially, the short-term gains that you have with jobs, I think that's not worth the risk of potentially losing our habitats, our environments for good. If one thing goes wrong, and I can understand better technology and things like that, there are still spills happening. There are still bad events happening that are negatively impacting our environment. And I want my kids, my grandchildren, and their kids to have access to these resources as well.
Thank you. Now for your closing statements. And since John Heinrich went first with the opening statements, we'll let Bill Vikander start with the closing statement.
Great. Thank you guys again so much for coming out this evening. Once again, thanks to the League of Women Voters. I'm sure they have heard thank you quite a bit tonight, but it is so important that all voters have an opportunity to hear from two candidates and where we differentiate on issues. I'm out talking with voters almost every day on the issues that they care about that impact their lives, and I think we have seen the government, the legislators in particular, get more divided, more polarized over the years, and I think we can change that, and that's my hope and that's my goal, is to get to a place where we can have bipartisan support on common sense legislation that impacts the lives of the folks in this room here. Once again, I want to thank you guys all for coming out. There's a lot of other issues that we didn't have time to get to this evening that I'd love to be able to talk with you all on. So please feel free to reach out. You can find us at billforhouse.com. We're on Facebook as well, Bill for MN House. And please get out and vote. It is so important that you all get out and vote on November 6th, and early voting starts on November 21st, so make sure you guys get out and vote.
And John Heinrich, your final statement, 1 minute.
Thank you again for all of you for being here tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. I feel like I am well positioned to represent our community with excellence. Because of my love for my country and my community and my values of honor, courage, and commitment that I learned in my military service, and also my blue-collar background in the asphalt and concrete industry. I've spent a lot of years leading people in that industry and working with homeowners here in our community in Anoka and Ramsey and business owners. I have a genuine interest in people, and I think that I can be a great advocate for our community given my background. I want to focus on roads and bridges, healthcare and the rising cost, our vets, and our children's schools. I ask for your vote on November 6th. Vote John Heinrich. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank the two candidates for speaking to the voters of the cities of Anoka and Ramsey about issues tonight and for running for office. Our democracy depends on citizen involvement. Thanks to the audience for listening and coming up with great questions. Now let us please show these candidates our appreciation. Again, the website for the League of Women Voters Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area is lwvabcmn, all in one sequence, .org. Or you could go to minvotes.org for election information. Please remember to vote on the election day of November 6th, or you can apply for our absentee ballots now, and starting on September 21st, you can go to your city hall and vote. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area, thank you and good night.